It's time to do the Trunnion upgrade on the LS7 that we're getting ready to throw together for the Z06. Just so y'all know, in case you missed it, all of the LS rocker arms had these end caps covering the needle rollers. They're just pressed into the side of the rocker arm. They limit the total movement of the rocker arm, but also they're just pressed in. Over time, they can press out and then spit the needle rollers out. They can fall down into the pan, and they can get picked up. They can destroy the motor. They're just unreliable, or have been in some cases, and especially when we start putting in the high lift and duration cams and the heavier valve springs. We normally do this upgrade with needle rollers, and I have a couple of videos about that, so I won't make a video showing this. But this one is special to us because this is the first Trunnion upgrade that we're going to install with the solids instead of the needle rollers, because we're going to use the PAC 1208X springs. We're going to use these solid bronze bushings. I looked around in the forums, and everything I can find on them is that they're long wearing and they don't wear down prematurely, which was my concern about switching away from the needle rollers. But apparently they're good, so we're going to try them and see what we get. And you got to have the right tool if you're going to be doing this. The right tool for this upgrade, for the Trunnion upgrade, is an arbor press. You really got to have this to get this done. With that, I'll leave links in the description to my other videos, the Trunnion upgrade, if you guys want to see it. And here we are halfway through the Trunnion upgrade. At this point, we've pressed all of the old Trunnions out, and we just have 16 hollow, empty rocker arms. So this is our deck bridge all set up, and right now we're measuring deck height, or how far up out of the hole the piston comes. I'll move this back off the piston, and on the block we can see we're dead nuts at 0. When we go onto the piston, we drop down 3 thousandths. So we are 3 thousandths below the deck. It is important to take this measurement at the halfway point of the piston and not on the dome or the dish. If we take it at the top or the bottom, the piston has a little bit of rock, and we need to split the difference between the two, or knock it back and forth and understand a difference and then split that, however. But if we take it right at the wrist pin, we always get a much more accurate reading right out of the gate. Okay, so we're going to check piston to valve clearance. Before we get started with that, we need to take one cylinder that we're going to use on the cylinder head, and we need to remove both valve springs. We're going to use cylinder 3, I think, so we'll do this one. And we need to swap both of the heavy valve springs for these light-duty checker springs. These light-duty checker springs are strong enough to hold the spring up, but not strong enough to put any preload on the lifter at all. These will give us the most accurate reading that we can get. To make this happen, we're going to use old Trusty. This tool has seen some work, man. This, I don't know if you guys can see how worn this is, but this tool has paid for itself many times over. And here we are, ready to go on the car for piston to valve clearance. The valves, you can push down with your finger now. They spring right back up. But these will not put any preload on the lifters. So once we take our measurement with these on, there's no second guessing whether or not the lifters will pump in. We can trust the measurement that we take for our piston to valve clearance and know that that is the most or the least amount of clearance that we will ever have, because we took the time and set up these light duty checker springs to run this test. The first thing we need to do to prep the block for this piston to valve clearance test is we need to TDC the cylinder that we're going to test, or we're going to measure clearance on. We're going to be using cylinder 3, which is second back on the driver's side. We need to roll the crank until this piston comes up to the top. And now with that cylinder TDC'd, we want to clean the piston. We want the piston free from any oil or dirt. We gotta put clay on it, and we really want the clay to stick. I am using alcohol and a paper towel. This is clay sourced from the local arts and crafts store. We just got it from Michael's. It's a non-hardening plastilina modeling clay. We're going to use the actual head gaskets and head gasket hardware for this test that we will use on the finished vehicle. And so it's important when we do this that we only torque the head bolts down to like 20 foot-pounds, just below the first step, so we're not crushing the gasket down more than what it would have been. For running the test, the single-digit thousandths that this won't be crushed won't really make or break you on taking the test, but it will mean that we can reuse these gaskets. And these gaskets, like I'm saying, they had a price on them. And the LSX head gaskets are not ambidextrous. They are specific to right and left side. They have a hole on one side for the coolant passage and no hole on the other side, and they do have a top and bottom side. So they come on the top stamped LSX left front and LSX right front. And it's important that the right head gasket goes on the right side in the right direction. Brodix. And now we can open our ARP stud kit and take 4 of the big M11 or 7/16 bolts out and put them in just the 4 bolt holes around the one cylinder that we're going to use to test. We don't need to worry about any of the other bolts. When I install my head studs, I like to do it after the head is on. If you install the head studs and then try to slide the head down onto the studs, you have a nightmare of trying to line up all these holes and sticks. All of the head studs have a nice little hex in the top for a little Allen key socket. You just put the head on, the dowels, and then you install the studs one at a time. And now we need 2 push rods and 2 rocker arms that we're going to be using. These rocker arms will get tightened to 22 foot-pounds. And now we just roll the motor a couple of times and let the pistons and the valves do their thing. As we're rolling it, we try to be delicate and make sure that we don't feel anything want to bind. Okay, now let's get it apart. Wow. All right, so here we can see we have a lot of space between the valves and the pistons. We will never have an interference issue. Our dimples where the valves were hitting were right here and right here. We'll cut. Now what we need to see is 80 on the intake and 100 on the exhaust. Okay, taking the measurement. On the exhaust, we have 370. And on the intake, we have 350. This is very safe for the guy. With most of these LS cams or LS engines, the camshafts that you'll buy just fit and work. The aftermarkets have done a pretty good job of making sure that there is the highest likelihood that the cam you buy from them and install will just work in the application you're buying it for. But it's still always important to check. You never know when your clearances are going to be a little bit too tight. And it's also really good to have this information up front, because down the road, it lets you know and understand if you even have more dimensional space to make upgrades later on.